भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्. Hari Om everyone. Over to you, Srini.
Hari Om, Hari Om. Am I audible?
Very much.
Yeah, okay. Good morning, good evening. And today we are going to do Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, which is Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. Going to slide number 2. Chapter 13 has got 35 verses. Verse 1 to 7 is Kshetram Kshetrajna. 8 to 12 is the 20 values. 13 to 19 is Nayam. We have 20 to 24 Purusha and Prakriti. 25 to 35 is Jnana Sadhana and Jnana Palam. Considered to be a very, very important chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, where we take a shift from Vibhuti Darshan to Vishwarupa Darshan to Atma Darshan. So before I start invoking the Upanishads, Hari Om once again. So I was very fascinated by these two statements. The Guru teaches Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya in Chandogya Upanishad, and the Sishya claims Aham Brahmasmi in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this is the central teaching of chapter 13. And very nicely Swami P has put. So one Upanishad has Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya, the other Upanishad has Aham Brahmasmi. Both giving us the same statement, but one refers to the Guru's teaching and the others the claimant of Sishya. Next. So before we start chapter 13, a small recap on the Bhagavad Gita. So Bhagavad Gita has got 3 Shatkams, Pradama Shatkam, Madhya Shatkam and Charama Shatkam. Pradama Shatkam, chapter 1 to 6, deals with Jiva Swarupam, Karma Yoga and the self-effort, which is basically the Tvam Padartha Vichara. Madhya Shatkam, chapter 7 to 12, is Ishvara Swarupam, Upasana Yoga and Ishvara Anugraham. And Charama Shatkam 13 to 18 is Jiva Ishwaram Aikyam, Jnana Yoga and the Sadgunas and the values, which is Asipadartha. So now we are stepping into the third Shatakam, chapter 13, so where we are going to see the Jiva Ishwara Aikyam. So just to, sorry, yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. Are you okay getting interrupted in between, or you want to finish it and then we will get into our discussion? That is your preference?
I'll finish it and then we can get into discussions.
Okay, no problem.
Right. Okay. So we are in Jiva Ishvara Aikyam of chapter 13, which is Jnana Yoga, Sadgunas and values, and Asipadartha. So we have seen Tvam, we have seen Tat, and now we are getting into the Asi. So just to give a recap from 10th chapter, Krishna focuses on Anatma part, namely the Vibhutis and the Vishwarupa Darshan and Ishvara Anugraha. From 13th chapter, the focus is shifting to Atma and Brahman, which is a major shift in perspective. Also going forward, 13, 14 and 15 chapters has many subjects taken from the Upanishads, and it will be totally on the Vichara of Atma, which is going to be a very, very self-learning process where we shift from the Ishwarupa Darshan to the Atma Darshan. So chapter 13 begins with Arjuna's question. In the beginning of the 13th chapter, Arjuna introduces 6 technical words. We know this: Kshetram, Kshetrajna, Prakriti, Purusha, Jnanam and Nayam. So from the 2nd verse up to the 7th verse, Krishna replies on this Kshetram and Kshetrajna, which is the first set of pairs which Arjuna wants to understand. So we know Kshetram literally from the standpoint of Vedanta means the entire objective universe, which is experienced by us, consisting of the external world, which is the object of experience, the body, the object of my experience, and finally it also includes the mind, which is also an object of experience. So this understanding of Kshetram is very important to very much understand Kshetrajna, which is going to be the next subject. Thus, the world plus the body plus the mind. The whole thing is Kshetram, which is Achetanam with attributes. So this is the first set of understanding which we need to understand. So here I'm trying to bring this, subject where we have a major shift from triangular format to binary format. So Swami P very interestingly puts it. So we have to change from Yoga Buddhi to Sankhya Buddhi. So I was trying to find out why, he was saying from Yoga Buddhi to Sankhya Buddhi, and did my, investigation and found in Yoga Shastra, the creation, that is the creation of the world with God, is introduced in Yoga Shastra. But in Sankhya Buddhi or Sankhya Shastra, the presence of God is not mentioned. The Sankhya philosophy deals only with Atma, Anatma, and the God component is not there. So that is why he has very clearly put it here that we should change from Yoga Buddhi to Sankhya Buddhi, which is the triangular format to binary format. So triangular format, we have Jiva, Jagat, Ishvara. Binary format, various representations, Kshetram, Kshetrajna, Atma, Anatma, and in chapter 7 we saw Para, Prakriti, Apara Prakriti, etc. So this tectonic shift has to take place from chapter 13. And Swami P says that a strong decision needs to be taken by the sadhaka with a lot of courage, since he will have to use only his self to handle samsara from now on. His prayers, meditation, saranagati will be only to the self, and absolutely there will be no external support. So we also learned that from world experience, world dependence to God dependence to self dependence. So this is very exclusively said in chapter 13. Next. So Kshetrajna, we are coming to this subject, is something different from the body, which pervades the body and makes the material body live and a living being. And the invisible principle, which is the Chaitanya Tattvam, and we also call it the unobjectifiable experience principle. So Kshetram is full of experience and objectification. Kshetrajna, which is your Atma, is unobjectifiable experience principle. So the four properties are Chetanam, Nirguna, Nirvikaram, and Satyam principle is what is your Kshetrajna. So therefore, the first job in Vedanta is to understand that the individual is a mixture of two things, which is the body and the consciousness. Therefore, instead of saying I am the body with an Atma, I should learn to say I am the Atma with an incidental body. So this thinking is also very much essential, which we need to start uh, start internalizing from this chapter. This shift of identification from Kshetram to Kshetrajna is called Aproksha Jnanam. As long as I say I have an Atma, it is called Paroksha Jnanam. The moment I say I am the Atma, it is called Aproksha Jnanam. So have to am is Paroksha Jnanam to Aproksha Jnanam. So this is the actual essence of the second verse in the chapter 13. Now we are coming to the next sloka, which is 13.3. And this sloka is considered to be a very, very, very important verse as far as Shankaracharya is concerned. In this sloka, Krishna reveals the Mahavakya sloka. So I've just put the sloka here. क्षेत्रज्ञ चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रज्ञयो ज्ञानं यत्तज्ज्ञानं मतं मम. So this sloka actually introduces the Mahavakyam and the Aikyam part of the chapter 13. It is the most important verse not only in the chapter 13 but also in the entire Bhagavad Gita. So in this verse, Krishna is revealing the fact that it is the Mahavakyam sloka, and may you know Kshetrajna Jivatma as Krishna Parvatma. So it is the Aikyam of Arjuna and Krishna in this sloka. Also the Aikyam of ourselves with God. So a very, very important verse. Shankaracharya has got very elaborate commentary running to pages, and there are so many sub-commentaries also written on this, which is still more elaborate. Now, going from verse 13.4 to 13.7 is an elaboration of Kshetram and Kshetrajna. We have seen this from Tattva Bodha. 6 and 7 verse deals with how the world was created, the 5 subtle elements, Ahankara, Mahat, Prakriti, the 10 sense organs, the mind, the gross organs, and the 24 building blocks of the Sankhya Yoga, and also the different things which get in the mind, the different behaviors of the mind like desire, hatred, pleasure, pain, the entire body mind complex, the sentiency, the fortitude, etc. All this enumerated above briefly is Kshetram together with its modification. So whatever is experienced in this world along with your body, your mind is a part of Kshetram only. So this ends Kshetram Kshetrajna part, where we need to understand the Atma Anatma part and consider that we are a combination of two, and we have to shift from the body to the Atma. So the next set of verse 13.8 to 13.12 is the 20 values, which is called Jnanam itself. And very beautifully, Swami P says, once you have this values, you are almost, close to Jnanam. And the same thing is also the Daivi Sampat, which is explained in chapter 16. So we have 20 values, and the values are classified as secular values, religious values, and spiritual values. So this was again an eye-opener for me, where the values can be practiced not only by religious people or spiritual people. It can also be, a part of the secular values, and which will benefit not only the individual but also the society. So here, Swami D's value of values is very relevant, and this needs introspection, where each value needs to be studied in detail, and we need to take a good introspection of each values. So secular values, we call it Ahimsa, Arjavam, Amanitvam, Adambitvam, and Shanti, Stairyam. All these are secular values which doesn't require any religious background. Religious values, we have Atma Vinigraha, Vairagyam, and Vairagyam spends a lot of time here, where we need to have Vairagyam of the object, people, family, and individuality. On the family front, Swami P is very critical, which means it is not only your relatives, your own spouse, your own children. You need to have this detachment, and we need to understand that we are coming from a different perspective on the family front also. So religious values, we need to be very careful on using the religion also for doing the 20 values. Spiritual values, we have Acharya Parasamam, constant self-inquiry, Adhyatma, and Jnana Nityatvam. So a very brief slide on values. I think we have dealt with values a lot, and practice of values will definitely lead to Jnanam. Is the bottom line of the verses from 13.4 to 13.7. Also, 13.8 to 13.12 deals with an example which I wanted to bring here, and which is very useful also. The values and the Shastric studies is like Patyam and Aushadam. So it is like when you get ill, you should follow both the Patyam part also and the Aushadam part also. So Patyam is your food control, Aushadam is your medicines. So discipline, virtues is the Patyam, and Shastric study is the Aushadam, and both are required for Jnana. So the combination of Patyam and Aushadam is very important to ensure that the Jnanam reaches the real requirement of improving your ability and improving your attitude. So that finishes the values part, and then we move on to the next slide, which is 13.13 to 13.19, which is called Nayam. So Nayam in Sanskrit means that which is to be known. So verse 13.13 is very relevant here. So Krishna says, I shall teach you that which is to be known, upon knowing which one attains immortality. So it is the supreme Brahman which is beginningless. It is said to be neither an effect nor a cause. So that which is to be known is Brahman, and the name is nothing but your Kshetrajna only, which we will see in the next slides. So this is what we get directly from the Upanishads. Okay, we get the Upanishads from the Upanishads. We get Para Brahman. That ultimate thing to be known is called Brahman. Also, the Taittiriya Upanishad, we saw Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, Brahman. So it is necessary that we understand the Brahman. And it is also called the Desa Kala Vastu Parishedam. And that is the Brahman, which does not have any link to time, space, or location. So out of that Brahman alone, we have the Nama Rupa, which is also from the Upanishads, Bhruvalli in Taittiriya. So I'm just bringing the context of Upanishads, because most of the details for this chapter is taken from the Upanishads. Now going to verse 13 to 13.18 to 20. Now we know that it is almost impossible to conceive such a Brahman, which does not have any attributes. And Swami P says one training that is suggested in Shastra is meditating upon the space. So we have seen this before. We have these 5 stages of improvement, which is first the Karma Yoga, the Upasana Yoga. We have Ishtadevata, then we have Vishwarupa Upasana, and finally we need to go for Nirguna Upasana, which means that which we need to go focus on nothing. And one of the best meditation here is the space meditation, which we will cover in the next slides. So we have to make our mind subtler and subtler and understand the Sadrupa Brahma and also the Sidrupa Brahma, which are both same. So Sat and Chit are same with existence on the outside and consciousness on the inside. So once we finish this Nyayam, we finally say the Nyayam Brahman is Kshetranya, the Jivatma is Kshetrajna, and the Paramatma is Nyayam Brahman. So the IKM is also mentioned here. So after listening to this, Arjuna is finally asking, so doing all this, what will I get? So Krishna's answer is, Mat Bhavaya Upayathe. So he says, he will also attain the same nature as mine. Just as I am free, he will also discover the eternal freedom, which is his very nature. So Mat Bhava means Brahma Bhava, Ishvara Bhava. Bhava means Swarupam. Therefore, Mat Bhava Ishvara Swarupam, which means Purnatvam. So once we understand the Brahman, so we are almost tending towards Purnatvam. So that subject of Brahman is discussed in this name chapters, and the result is you will achieve me, is what Krishna says. And after name, we go to verse 13.20 to, in fact, 13.24 is the Purusha and Prakriti. So we know Purusha and Prakriti both are beginningless. No, all the products and gunas are also born of Prakriti. So Purusha Prakriti mixture alone we call Ishvara. Prakriti plus Purusha is equal to Ishvara Brahman plus Maya is equal to Ishvara. So Kshetram Kshetrajna deals with Jiva and Prakriti plus Purusha deals with Ishvara. So that is the differentiating subject here. So he started with the Atma Anatma within ourselves, and finally he is speaking about the Atma Anatma part of the entire universe or the world. Here we need to understand that Purusha is the consciousness principle, Prakriti is basic matter or energy principle. So everything in the creation is born out of Prakriti, which includes the body, mind, complex also. So that which is ever the subject of experience and never the object of experience, that I am the Purusha and also I am Brahmasmi, must be understood from this perspective also. Purusha is I, the very subject who is enclosed in the material body. The enclosure is Prakriti, the enclosed consciousness I is the Purusha. So in the Chandogya Upanishad also there is a part which says the mind is considered to be a cave, and inside the cave the God exists. So this cave details are given in the Upanishads, and inside the cave it is the God who is trying to control and support us. So verse 13.23, the Supreme Purusha in this body is said to be the proximate witness, which is the witness consciousness, the supporter, the sustainer, the experience, the great Lord, and the Supreme Self. So this is another Mahavakya. The Jivatma is equated to the Paramatma. So therefore, this shloka is another Mahavakya shloka. And previously we had one Mahavakyam in 13.3. So before we go into 13.24, just a small aside subject. The Purusha Prakriti, Mahavakyam can be understood, as Swami P keeps saying, by employing this theory of, Bhagatyaga Lakshana. So when we see the Ishvara and Jiva, uh, two distinct factors as far as the mind, the body, the other aspects are concerned. So when we do this Bhagatyaga Lakshanam, we find that the only common denominator which comes to both of them is the Atma, and one is the Jivatma, the other is Paramatma. So when we negate all the experienced part, what remains is the experiencer, and both the experiences are not different, but they are the same. So Bhagataya Lakshanam is a good practice to understand Jivatma Paramatma Aikyam. Verse 13.24, he who knows Purusha and Prakriti along with his gunas is not born again in whatever manner he lives. So we had a lot of debate on this. So very clearly this shloka says whatever manner he lives. So there is no direct connection between attaining moksha and leading a dharmic life. Even after attaining the moksha, to complete his prarabdha, uh, the sadhaka has to live his life based upon his vasanas or his purva karmas. So in this, we can find sadhakas employing different activities. Some sadhakas are going as a recluse to the caves. Somebody is building schools. Somebody is making more donations to the society. So it doesn't mean that there should be only a dharmic and sattvic way of living. So based upon the gunas, the sadhaka can continue as a prarabdha and then later on achieve moksha. So we need to understand the body and atma physically need not be separated. We understand that, and you cannot separate also. So it is only a cognitive separation. So here again, I have not put it. So a very important thing here is the Vyavaharika Satyam and the Paramatika Satyam. So once we see from the Paramatika Satyam, the order of reality, all this is going to be Mithya. But for a Paramatikam Satyam, where the transaction happens, the sadhaka has to continue his daily routine, but he is not very connected to this, and he also creates that separation between Paramarthika and Vyavaharika. So thus, one who understood this difference between Prakriti and Purusha very clearly, and also one who has learned to train his mind to identify with the Purusha, he will succeed in attaining moksha, is what the Upanishad says. So this training is called the Nidityasanam, where constantly we need to understand that we are the Purusha part and not the Prakriti part. So that completes the Purusha Prakriti subject, and we are moving to the final stage, which is verse 13.25 to 13.35, which is the Jnana Sadhanam and the Jnana Talam. So just to recap, we started with the Kshetram Kshetrajna, then we moved on to the values. Then we saw what is called Nayam, the understanding of Brahman, and we also saw the Purusha and Prakriti. So Swami P says, though Arjuna want to understand the six things. So basically, it is only three things which needs to understand. The Shretagnya, Nayam, and Purusha is one set. The Kshetram, Prakriti is the another set, and the third is Jnana. So this division we need to understand. So Jnana Sadhana, there are 5 stages which we saw also in the 12th chapter. So which is Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, and Shravana Manana Nididhyasana. So here it is clearly mentioned based on the maturity and karma pala, we will follow the above. People can directly get into Shravana Manana Nididhyasana based upon their Purva Karma. Also, if the requirement is there, we also need to do Karma Yoga and Upasana Yoga. in this, Swami P in his recent lecture mentioned, there is no hard and fast rule on, what to follow when. And, a mixture of, this is also good. Maybe if you are a, highly evolved sadhaka, it doesn't mean that you should not do karma and upasana, and the vice versa also. But one thing which is said very clearly is the person who has done sadhana chatushta sampati, which means he has practiced sadhana chatushta sampati, he can actually get into nidityasanam directly, and in his case, the shravanam itself will become nidityasanam. So as he listens, to the Vedantic teaching, he will be able to change his attitude from the current attitude to the attitude of what is the requirement in the jnana palam. So basically, the maturity is what is required, and we need to move from the current stage to a better stage, and focus more on atma rather than the body. So basically, karma yoga, we know this, it is malam nivrti, it removes all the impurities. Upasana yoga is vikshepa bhavana nivrti, which is the confusion of the mind, which needs to be removed. And in the Upasana Yoga, the final is you can do the Akasha, the Prakasha meditation, which is prescribed. Why this is prescribed is you are close to the Atma, you are close to Brahman. So Akasha is almost close to Brahman. So this meditation is prescribed in the Upasana Yoga. So once you elevate from there, you do the Shravana Manana Desana, which will remove the Avarna Nivrti, which means that whatever the block is there between knowledge and you, that will also be removed. So as I already said, if you have followed SES, which is called Sadhana Chatusarpati well, then Shravanam itself will become Nidityasanam. So this is basically on the sadhana, and we now move to the Jnana Palam. So Jnana Palam is many. We have seen Jnana Palam right from chapter 2, where it is called Sthita Prajna, and chapter 12, where he is called the Mahabhakta. And in this chapter, he is called the Jnana Palam Data, where the basic things which will happen after following the sadhana is Samadarshanam, there will be no Raga Dvesham. He will also become Akarta and Abhokta. And attainment of Brahmatvam and immortality will definitely be achieved, which is called Amrtatvam Prapti. So the final word here is we will achieve Jivan Mukti, and this will definitely create a difference in life. So this is what is the chapter 13 all about. Though chapter 13 starts with a lot of Upanishad teaching, it will continue in chapter 14 and 15 also. And we should definitely look forward to pick up the Upanishad teachings and tend towards the binary format from the triangular format. So my biggest aha moments from this chapter is the format change. Number one, the Akasha meditation, from where we need to move from Saguna Brahman to Nirguna Brahman meditation. And of course, the Nidityasanam part was very interesting, where Swami P clearly says Nidityasanam is not only the meditation, it is also reading, discussion, satsang, anything where you discuss about the Brahman and the Vedas. It is a part of Nidityasanam. So we need to be dissolved in this subject all along, right from the time we wake up to the time we go to sleep. So this is what is the bottom line of this entire chapter. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and Om Tat Sat. Hari Om. Thank you.
Wonderful, Srini. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Very good presentation, very elaborate, very much covering all the points and good insights. Thank you very much. Yeah. I know.
Thank you.
Thanks, Srini. Fantastic presentation. I mean, I have listened to the lectures of Swami P, but you've encapsulated it beautifully.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So can I just go with a question that's been bothering me ever since I listened to Swami P and Srini? You referenced that part, which kind of caught my
Yes.
attention again. Can you pull up
Yes.
the presentation?
Yeah.
And if you go to, I think where you said 1320.
Just a moment. Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible. So if you can just make it full screen and go to 13.20, I think.
Prakritim Purusham Chayana Vidya Anadi Ubhavapi, right? That particular shloka, right?
Prakritim
Just go to slide.
Purusham is first one.
No, just go to
Talking
slide
about
10, I think. Slide 10 maybe.
Yeah.
13.20.
Keep going, keep going down.
13.20. Okay. Yeah.
One more.
One more.
Another one. There you go. Okay. So, my question, Srini, is, really around the word Purusha, right? And very simply put, as you said also, is that Purusha is nothing but the Atma or Brahman. You can use several words. But Purusha is ultimately the ultimate reality, correct?
Correct.
And through all the kind of lectures and conversations that we've had, we've always said that the Purusha or the Brahman is the Sakshi or the witness, right?
Yes.
And that, so, if you look at the first sentence, the Supreme Purusha in this body is said to be the proximate witness. I get all of that. My quarrel, if you will, is really with the rest of the sentence. Because even Swami P uses the word that, uses the word experiencer, right?
Yes.
And all along, at least the way I've understood it is that, you can call it the mute spectator or the couch potato or the witness or whatever you want to call it, and that there is no experiencer. I mean, the Purusha does nothing. It just doesn't. It is neither the experiencer or the experienced or the experience itself, right? But Swami P uses this word experiencer quite frequently in his teachings, and I don't know whether that's got to do with the fact that he's trying to explain or otherwise. But I sort of have a sort of disconnect on that point, that I always thought that Purusha does nothing and cannot be the experience. The experience, and even if you look at Nirvana Shatakam, it says, I can't remember the exact words, but it says, I'm neither the experiencer or the experienced or the experience itself. So the word experiencer being used over and over again sort of bothers me. So I just wanted other sort of views if there are any.
Yeah. Can I go with whatever,
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So what is being said is, when you have something experienced, you should have an experiencer. So without an experiencer, you cannot have an experienced at all, right? So the experiencer and the witness are almost the same. So what he's trying to say is, whenever something is experienced, you should have an experiencer also. So that experiencer doesn't mean that he is going to get the feelings of the experience, but he is available, as a, like you said, as a couch potato, to know that there is an experiencer who is supporting all this experience. So to put it in a different way, the Purusha is also the consciousness, right? And without the support of consciousness, nothing can happen in the world. So for everything, you have this consciousness in the background. Of course, he does nothing, but the word experiencer from English perspective means that it is like he is also experiencing. But actually, I feel it is only the witness consciousness what is trying
Yeah.
with the word experience.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I mean, I kind of I like the word witness because, or sakshi, because that
Correct.
is what it is. It just sits and watches. Because if you look at the fourth shloka in Nirvana Shatakam, it says aham bhojanam naiva bhojyam na bhokta, which is translated as I'm not the experience not the object of experience, not even the one who experiences, right?
Correct.
And so the word experience kind of being attributed to Brahman is where I sort of disagree fundamentally. And
Just
you know
to
what really bothered me really was that Swami P uses it very sort of
Yes,
frequently.
yes. Swami
And
B
so I
uses
was like,
it very,
yeah.
yes.
And I kind of, you know, I keep thinking that this is kind of contrary to at least how I've understood it. So, sorry, Subbu.
just to add to, actually, there's no difference. There's no disconnect here, Ajay. I just wanted to tell you, because if you read the verse properly, you know, it says Purushaha Prakritistyo hi bhunkte. Okay.
Mhm.
So Purusha, when he is involved in Prakriti, he becomes the enjoyer of the qualities of the qualities born out of Prakriti. So it is actually when Purusha is involved in Prakriti, he enjoys the qualities born out of Prakriti, which means that when one identifies himself with the body and senses, he becomes the experiencer. So if you see the first two words, right? Purushaha Prakritisto hi bhunkte. That is the one who is involved in the Prakriti and who enjoys, therefore, he enjoys the qualities born out of Prakriti. Right? And therefore,
You're right.
because he identifies himself with the body and senses, the Jivatma, he becomes the experiencer. That is how it is to be read. So there is no conflict.
But that is sort of what we are all struggling with, is the wrong notion, right? And that I understand. I mean, that's the wrong notion, and that's what we're trying to overcome by sort of cleansing our mind and doing upasana and jnana yoga, etc. Right? But the Purusha in its fundamental state, or the fundamental attribute, I mean, I mean, I hate using the adjectives, but the Purusha by itself does nothing, absolutely, right? Doesn't experience
So view it like, you know, view it like Purusha is equal to Kshetragya is equal to Jivatma, you know. Now, if the Jivatma is identified with the qualities of the Prakriti, he therefore becomes the experience.
Yeah. I agree with all of that. But all I'm saying is when you define Purusha in its what I call the pure form,
Yes.
then it cannot be anything more than witness.
Maybe
That's
Jivatma would have been a better word or something. I don't know.
Yes.
It just muddles my mind.
Yes, in fact, I very much go with Ajay. I was almost struggling for an year, to understand. Experiencer means, somebody has to be there, na? But after a period of time, like what Subbu is saying, I think we should see it at two different order of reality. Maybe the difference is Purusha, the word is same, but the Purusha is RC also and Purusha is OC also. So when we see from OC, he doesn't do anything, right? He's just a witness. But when you see Purusha from RC, he is actually giving life to body, he is actually giving life to objectification. So there he becomes the experiencer, is
I
what
agree
is
with that. I agree with
yeah.
that part. I mean, as OC, nothing, only
Yes,
witness. As
yes,
RC, it is probably I'm just looking at the same sentence again. It's the sustainer, right? Because it's the sort of the life behind everything else, if you will, right?
yeah, correct.
But I still cannot kind of get my head around the word experiencer. It just,
Correct.
it just gives the life. Fair enough. It does the reflection and instills sort of I forget the word, but instills something into the jivatma or to kind of keep it going, right? But it still doesn't experience. It's just that sort of thing where I'm sort of a little bit sort of anal about right now. Sorry, go ahead.
If I can, I think what's tripping you up is English. Because when we put ER on it, we have a speaker, we have a driver, we have a talker. But the reality is there a second thing? Jiva is Atma. I think, again, we assume a doer, and that's what's bothering you. How can there be a doer? How can there be an agent? But the ER appears to make that statement. The doer is the driver. The doer is the talker. But really, the doer is Atma. Another way to look at it is take Sakshi when there is nothing to witness, and the nature of the witness is simply consciousness. When we strip the ER from the experience, it is simply Atma. I don't know if that's helpful, but
I agree with all that you're saying, and you're totally right. Even as Sakshi, you could argue that What do you witness? Because there is no
Yeah,
other,
actually,
right?
actually, Ajay,
Right?
what you're trying to say, I also understood. The word experiencer need not be used. Okay? You can always call it Sakshi, right? Why is bringing the word experiencer is a confusion.
Correct. Because you've used the word fitness, which is Sakshi. You already kind of
Correct.
got that in the sentence, right?
Correct.
And I
Correct.
don't know
Correct.
whether this is a translation or how you've kind of, is it your words or is somebody, these words? I don't know. But
But
I'm saying
again,
I
I
am okay
think
with the word witness. I'm okay with the word sustainer at a certain level because it sustains.
this is where
But
the ER is a problem. Because
the
again,
experience,
we associate doer.
not only ER, Rick, it says you're neither the experience, which doesn't have ER, or the experience itself, or the experiencer, right? That is all attributes of Prakriti, right? It is not the attribute of Purusha.
But
Any of these three
ultimately, there
things.
is no second thing. There
Exactly.
is no
So,
Prakriti apart from Purusha. There is no
exactly,
world apart from consciousness.
exactly, and therefore, because there is nothing like that. So, to even kind of put that sort of element into Purusha is what I'm quarreling with. So, it might be semantics, but I just fundamentally, to me, that is how I've understood all the lectures from the last few years. And the moment you bring in the word experiencer, I'm like, this is contrary to at least how I understood it. So we'll stop here, but just wanted to make that point.
I think Gunz, you
Well,
have
I think
a
part of what you're saying, part of what you're saying is, as long as we're incorporating the apparent jiva experience, we have to use these words. But ultimately, there is no jiva, not one who disappears. There is none, no jiva ever appeared. And from that context, if you then look at what we're saying here, it all just dissolves. But again, from these have to be said because we take ourselves to be what we are not.
Yeah, no, I get that. I mean, all I'm saying is with Prakriti, which is what is not, you can attribute all of this. But Purusha, which is, you cannot attribute these things. That's my limited point.
Hey, can I share my screen for a second? Ajay, I want to address this with a visual that Alpana shared with us, I think 2 or 3 years ago.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
Let me just share my screen.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember this from a presentation
Okay.
now. Yeah.
So I really like this visual, which she did a talk on Guna Guneshu Vartante on chapter 15, I think. But this is basically, I think, head-on addresses your question.
Yeah,
You're
this is beautiful.
saying,
Yeah, this is,
why is this an experiencer? Where is the experiencer? The
yeah,
confusion is here.
Yeah.
Okay. This is sometimes called the experiencer and it's experiencing all this stuff. But all of this stuff is non-existent. There is
Correct.
only this witness. This is, I think, what Rick and you are talking about, right? This is it. Everything
Exactly.
to the right of it is nothing.
So everything to the left
That's
of this is Purusha, everything to the right is Prakriti.
This is Prakriti and it's completely Mithya.
So left
Yeah.
is Atma, right is Anatma. Left is
Yes.
witness, right is experience. Everything about experience in any shape or form is on the
Whatever
right,
you're
not on the left.
saying, right? There
Yeah,
is no
yeah.
experiencer here.
On the
There is
left, yeah.
only one. There's nothing
Yeah,
else. So
there's just one, exactly. Witness is also like a, in a way, sort of compromise because, that is the only thing. It doesn't witness anything because there is nothing, right?
yeah,
But in a way,
yeah,
sort of, even
exactly.
that's a compromised word because that's the only one. But you can still kind of call it witness, but you certainly can't call it an experiencer, is what I'm saying.
Yes. Yeah, I mean it's this thing that
Yeah.
like
The
we
mind or the
always get
individual or the
into, right?
jiva.
And we keep saying experiencer over here, and that trips us up.
I'm glad you pulled up this slide. It's beautiful, right? This is so
This is
Hey,
a
can we share
very
this?
nice, I
so
mean,
simple.
Gunz,
Yeah.
Gunz, can you share this
this is,
presentation?
So this is a
yeah,
presentation
I'll
Alpana
definitely
made.
share this.
Can you
So
share
once
Yeah,
you're finished,
this whole presentation?
I'll share the whole
I
presentation.
don't have
This
this.
is,
Yeah, it's very
yeah,
nice.
this is
So
like 2-3 years ago, I think.
yeah. So Rick, what happened was we
And
did the small book by Swami Dayananda. This is before we started the Gita, as in like verse by
I see.
verse.
Okay.
And we got
yeah,
I wasn't
given
there
about
then.
a
Yeah.
we were about 10 of us at the time, and then each of one of us presented our sort of takeaways after having read that 200 pages
Yeah,
of
I'll tell you
Swamiji.
exactly when we did this.
Yeah, yeah.
January 2021.
Correct, exactly. So this was like, and this was at a time when our understanding was limited, and therefore what Alpna presented, some of it was OHT, right?
She was like, okay, I'm going to just visualize this and just nail this for you guys. And it just like etched in my mind from that time. Just
No,
this slide, right? That's why I
this is
pulled it up.
excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'll share it.
So Srini, what you did today was beautifully done. I
It
would
was
like
very
to
beautiful.
add a caveat, if I may. When we go to binary, 1, 2, I think there's a 1A, and the 1A is the guru. The guru is the bridge.
Guru is the bridge. Correct. Understood.
So
Hey,
repeat that. Sorry, I didn't quite get that. This is the one where you mentioned about no Ishvara, right?
Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, got it.
So
hey,
where's the bridge between myself and myself, the guru?
yeah.
Good one.
Beautiful.
And yeah, that's beautiful, Rick. I'm going to steal that.
Excellent.
So the other I had a comment, Srini. Just this is like very nitpicking kind of comment. Okay, so if you go to the first slide, you had Shankara saying Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. The second line is missing there. Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha.
Correct.
That's a very key thing.
Correct.
So it's both together. In fact,
Correct.
I was listening to the reason I'm picking on this. Don't mind that, is because I was listening to a Swamiji lecture recently, and he said there was some debate and going on and on and on about this, and Shankara was doing commentaries in his time, right? And we discussed this last time. I think Rick brought this up last time also during Shankara's time, and we were talking about Buddhism versus Shankara and all that. And there were a lot of debates going on at that time, and Shankara said, okay, just back up. I'm just putting some American slang here. Just back up and look at the whole thing. I'm going to give you like summary in half a sentence. Just forget about everything. And then he said this: Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha, and that's it. Just don't think about anything else. Right? This is it. And now let's talk about whatever you want to from that point. So it just stuck in my mind, and Swamiji was saying this is how Shankara used to very, very succinctly, like even he wrote the commentary on Brahma Sutras, right? And in the beginning there is this Adhyasa Bhasha, and he talks about all the superimposition and everything. Even there, this is what he means. Everywhere, this is what he means. It's a beautiful, beautiful, like half a verse, and the encapsulating the whole thing.
Very
Once
nice.
actually, Shankaracharya is also written a Ekashloki summarizing the entire Vedanta. You know about that?
I think you've talked about it.
Yeah, I shared
sometime
it sometime back. I don't know
Yeah.
whether people
Yeah,
had a
yeah,
chance
yeah.
to go through. It is just one verse in which he explains to the Shishya that he is that, Tatvamasi. That's it, over and out. So there are shlokas where I think the entire essence has been condensed in just one shloka. There has been also bhashyams of countless pages which has been written on the same subject. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Can you share that, Subbu, once again? I know you've done it.
Yeah,
in the
I'll
past.
do that. I'll do that.
Please, yeah.
So should we do should I do a quick recap? I mean, very similar to this, but
Hey,
we want to discuss
Subbu,
something
hang
else.
on 1 second. I think Rick was going to say something.
Just quickly, Raju went to in Atlanta, I think, your hometown,
Yeah.
with Swami Sarva Priyananda, where he did Ashtavakra Gita.
Yes.
Well, that
Yes.
Gita is kind of the equivalent to what you were just talking about, because in that Gita, all Prakriti, Jiva, Sustainer, preserver, destroyer, they're all negated.
Yeah. Yes.
And they're done. So again, for Ajay, it's all from the point of view of what is real. And from the point of view is what is real, what to talk of the unreal that never has come to be, the real that has never ceased to be. But yet, as long as we take ourselves to be that which is unreal, we do have to traverse this path.
Yeah. Yeah. And those 2 days, a friend was visiting from Detroit, and I discovered, to my amazement, that he listened to Swami SPG quite frequently.
Mhm.
We've never talked about, this. I mean, we go back 35 years, and suddenly he brought this up, and I was like, hey, I mean, how did you, discover this? And so he had some serious issues with his daughter, and he has been trying to reconcile for himself, and he went and explored different things, like your early life, Rick, but maybe in a stronger way with psilocybin and LSD and all kinds of stuff. He was trying to treat his child, with all these things, and in the process he also started reflecting, and he came around, and now he is listening to SPG quite a bit. And then I told him about this 2-day retreat which happened last year, that I got an opportunity. I mean, 9 hours every day. You didn't even know the time going, and he sequentially just keeps on that Ashtavakra Gita. That's his favorite. He said this is his favorite, and he starts with the Om meditation and just keeps on diving deeper and deeper, and it was just a amazing experience.
It
You
was
you won't
also
even, and suddenly 9 hours have gone by.
it was also a favorite of Ramana Maharshi.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I shared the other day a very short Swami SPG, where he talks about, if enlightenment is so rare, why should you pursue it? And if anybody hasn't seen that, I heartily recommend it. But just 2 points from there I'd like to make. The one is, once you become aware of this spiritual essence, what else is there to do? I mean, we have to live a life, but really, what else is there to pursue with gusto? And the other point he makes is, all that we call struggle is struggling against who we really are. Would be better to simply surrender.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, yeah.
And to add one more dimension to that, I think this is also something that keeps us on the right path all through, right? So in a way, it is contemplation of the divine.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, I guess life also
So
teaches you that there is no fulfillment eventually, and so you kind of say, okay, where do I go from here?
And if you believe the promise of spirituality, the promise of Jivan Mukta, no matter what else is enjoyable or pleasurable, it fades. It can't hold a candle to this knowledge. And so
So,
it's
one of the
important to
things,
remind ourselves that, because
yeah.
it's easy to get sidetracked.
So one of the things, Rick, that I've heard, some rather intelligent people is really around the fact that we understand that there's no fulfillment in life, and everyone through life experiences realizes it. So that's not a secret. But the second point that you made around the fact that, if this is the path, then let me pursue it. But the challenge, I think, is in terms of conviction around that, the truth behind this construct around Vedanta, right? And I know a lot
Absolutely.
of people who are just unwilling to accept it, partly because they think it is not scientific, or they think that it is basically some sort of creation of somebody's imagination or whatever. So I think the big challenge I think people have is that they understand that we don't have purnatvam, or fulfillment. But I think to pursue a goal like this, it requires you to have almost like blind faith, if you will. I mean, that's not the case, but to say that, look, the Vedas are what they are, and that's the ultimate truth, and just go pursue that path. And a lot of people cannot get onto that path for whatever reasons.
I agree with
So
you.
Ajay,
This is also where Shraddha does apply, as you're referring.
Correct.
If you can't have faith in the reality of the poem, sure, why are you going to do this? But this is also where the Lord is very gracious, because if you have anything else to explore, you get to explore it before you come here, or you come here completely.
Yeah, across
The other
multiple
point,
lives. Yeah.
the other point I'd like to make is it isn't every experience of pleasure, joy, peace, love is the self, is who we are. People don't recognize that. They think it's the object, they think it's the situation. But when you explore more deeply in any of life's momentary pleasures, the wanting self is resolved. In the resolution of the wanting self, only the self remains. And that's real. If somebody can see that, that doesn't take away from any of the pleasures, but it points to, boy, I got to get to the source. I got to get to where it doesn't come and go. But I agree with you. And also, Ajay, the whole world is selling a false bill of goods. So do you accept that bill of goods? Or are you willing to throw it aside and say, no, there's something more to life. There's something more real than what everyone tells me life is about. And as you
Exactly.
say, that takes a certain brave courage or brave, but gee whiz.
Exactly.
yeah,
And I mean, I
yeah,
use the same argument to say that, you've tried it all. And I tell them that, look, if you go through the basics of Vedanta, it is logical, it is scientific in a certain level. If you just try and absorb it properly. And like you said, you've tried all the other paths, they haven't worked. So why don't you try this one? You might just get there.
And I really do
yeah,
think,
and
though, that most
yeah,
people, and I don't blame them, I don't mean this in a negative way, but they don't decipher, they don't trace back in any moment of joy what's really happening. Now, on one level, why should they? But any moment of joy, standing, watching the ocean, witnessing a sunset, listening to music, a lover, in every one of those, we need, in that moment, we don't want the world to be different. We don't want our mind or our body to be different. So what is that saying? When we have no wants whatsoever, we are simply ourselves. That is really the touchstone that people don't realize is activating every moment of joy. If you do recognize that, what else are you going to pursue?
yeah,
And it's always been with you. It's never, ever not been there. And the other thing I like to say is, because if you look at it, I don't know how many people would really agree with this, but in every moment we're looking for peace or joy. We'll call it different things, but it's really what we're looking for. So who put us on this track and who can get off of it?
yeah.
Perfect.
And I was just going to say, and Subbu, will give it to you here in a second. The thing that got me thinking in the last 2 weekends of discussion, and of course, Srini, with your presentation today, is flip the entire logic around. Don't live in the mithya and be the experiencer, as Ajay was saying, right? Go into the witness mode. Put yourself on the left side of the slide I was showing you. If you go into the witness mode, it's a lot of fun because it's like all this unreal stuff. I can use a lot of other adjectives happening in front of you. That is one thing. And it's very, very logical because I was just doing some summary of chapter 6, and Swami D specifically says that, hey, the minute you know that you can observe your thought, what is going on in your mind, you know that you are separated from your thought, and the thought is actually nothing because it goes away. There's thousands of this thing coming and going, coming and going. But if you are able to observe that, that's the real goal of meditation. Like if you separate yourself from that and look at the thoughts, that's it. There you, and we all know that logically we can do it, right? Like if you just sit and 5 minutes, like what you were just saying, if you flip that and go to the left side of that screen and try to be the witness, then it's a lot of fun. And it becomes like, hey, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's so hard when, I was telling you, all of you, like a close friend of mine passed away recently, to cancer, and all of us go through things like these, right? And the teaching came in very, very helpful, obviously, and I was constantly trying to reflect, but it is very, very hard, because that's the world we live in.
So it's also summed up in the expression, the one who knows the mind is not the mind.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would like to point out here, Atmananda, who was a contemporary of Ramana Maharshi and was a sage. There's a point where his wife dies, and he's distraught. I mean, it's his wife. They've been together for decades. And there is a disciple who comes from a long distance who doesn't know about this. And when he gets to Atmananda's house, his people are trying to shoo this guy away. And Atmananda comes and says, "Who's here?" And he tells him, and he says, "Well, come on in." And the thing about this story is, so he tells Atmananda what his query is. Atmananda responds to it. And then he leaves, and Atmananda goes back to his grief.
Yeah.
None of it,
That says a
all of
lot.
it is acceptable. None of it is us. But when nothing has to be denied, the ability to let it go makes it much easier. Let come what may, all will
Yeah.
go.
Yes.
See, the moment you attach something to a thought, then it gets power, right? So don't give it power. And like you said, Gunz, I think if you're able to completely separate yourself from the thoughts, sitting in meditation, you're actually being detached, right? You then become a
Yes.
witness,
Yes.
and therefore it
That is
doesn't seem to
Krishna's advice.
impact you.
The
Yeah, it
Vairagya
doesn't get
comes.
impacted, right? This
Yeah.
is exactly what is being spoken even in that 9th chapter, right? The 4th and 5th verse, where he says, "They are in me, but I'm not in them," right?
Yeah.
So basically saying that the thoughts and are there in me, but I'm not in them. So I don't give power to that, right? So I detached, and therefore I don't really suffer the joy and sorrow which comes along with it.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's
Okay.
beautiful. That's a
So should I
beautiful
just
connect.
finish it, or should we continue like this? How do you feel?
Just give me 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Subbu.
of course, Subbu.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just trying. Subbu will just take yours. Just give me 2 minutes. I mean, I was just pondering on what Ajay was saying. Ajay, see if this kind of try to make you understand the attributes of any experience. The attributes of any experience belongs to the object of experience. So this is like a statement. For example, the attributes of any experience belongs to the object of experience. So what happens is we normally take these attributes of experience on ourselves. I'll give you a small example. When we have pain, or when we get hunger, when we get thirst, we think we are hungry, we are thirsty, we are having the pain. But the shift should be the attributes of experience is the object of experience. So you are not hungry, you are not thirsty. It is your body which is hungry, and it is your body which is thirsty. So I think that is where he is bringing that shift between experiencer and the experienced. So normally what happens is we attach all the experiences to our atma, or which is there inside as a witness. But it is necessary to understand that the experiences belong only to the objects, and it is not to the subject. So that is the subject object distinction which we need to bring. So to understand this, that is what is bringing this experiencer concept. We always think, I am the guy who's getting affected, but I'm not the guy who's getting affected. My body is getting affected. The outside world is getting affected. I don't do anything. I just see I'm the I am the person, who is a witness, or the experiencer means that doesn't affect me, is what is like the concept which, we try to bring. But
Yeah.
anyway, as,
I mean,
as Gun said, it is on the right side, it is not on the left side. But to
yeah.
bring this distinction, I think it is a stepping stone to understand witness, right? So we always think, I am the victim, I get pain, I get angry, I get, thirsty, I am hungry, but I don't get anything at all. So that is the first shift we need to take. And even in your Vyavaharika Satyam, we need to understand this distinction that, I am doing it only, as a objectification of whatever actions I do. Then once you shift to Paramatika, like you said, nothing. I am just the witness. I just keep seeing everything, and the entire world is mithya. So I thought I will try
Yeah, no,
to
Srini, you're, effectively sort of, saying the same argument that
correct.
I was making, that at the end of the day, you're totally right. I mean, we're
Correct.
not the experiencer, because as in the Atma is not the experiencer. And
Correct.
so to kind of talk about Purusha, I just feel like these are like important sort of points, because otherwise it just muddles up the whole concept. If somebody who's not, who's kind of early into this conversation,
Yeah.
you suddenly kind of say, then what's the difference between Purusha and Prakriti? Because if Purusha is an experiencer, which it is not,
Correct.
right? Then
Correct.
there is a fundamental disconnect. So, I mean, I think we all know what we're talking about. It's just the probably the vocabulary, the use of words more than anything else. Go ahead,
Small
Subbu.
example. Small example. What he gives is, just before I hand
Yeah.
over to Subbu, sorry. See, when we write something, we say I am the writer, but actually I am not the writer. The pen is the writer, right? So the attribute of writing, we take it on us, right?
Mm,
We say I am, I have written this letter, but actually I have not written the letter. There is an instrument called pen which has actually written the letter, right? So we forget this pen and we say I write. So basically what we need to say is the pen writes and I am the instrument, who's making the pen write, something
good
like that.
example. Good example. But again, yes,
Yeah.
it just furthers my argument again. Yeah.
Yes, this distinction we need to bring. That's all. Thank you. Over to you, Subbu.
Okay, I just have about 15 minutes, so I'll try to make it fast. The format is not very different from what Srini has presented, but nevertheless, it will be a reiteration, and I will just probably try to add some few points in some places where I have captured from other sources and books. Okay, so chapter 13 actually starts off with Arjuna asking the question, for the explanation of 6 Vedantic terms, that is Purusha, Prakriti, Kshetragya, Kshetram, and Jnanam and Nyayam. So Paramarthananda Swamiji also says that these are those 6 questions. There are actually only 3 buckets. So the Atma is primarily the Purusha, Kshetragya, and Nyayam. Okay, and Prakriti and Kshetram is the Anatma part, and Jnanam is the knowledge that is to be learned. All right. So coming to verse number 2. I think Bhagavan says that body is the Kshetram and the knowing principle is the Kshetragya. I think this we will keep as a base, because the same verse of, verse 2, where he talks that body is a Kshetram and, Kshetragya is the knowing principle, he expounds on this in the remaining verses from, 3 to say 7. Okay. So he starts off saying body is a Kshetram, but immediately in verse number 3, he says that the Kshetragya is me and I am present as the consciousness in all bodies. Now, this is a very important, inference one can make, because this is exactly the Mahavakyam Pragyanam Brahma. Okay, that consciousness is Brahman. So if Bhagavan is Brahman and I am the consciousness that is present in all the bodies, this is exactly what we learned in Manisha Panchakam also, that Ya Brahmari Pipili Kanta Tanushu Protha Jagat Sakshini. That is the same consciousness which is there in the ant and the same consciousness which is there in Brahma is nothing but the same Brahman. Okay, so consciousness is Brahman. Pragyanam Brahma is the first inference that one can take from this, because he says, though I'm the knowing principle in verse number 2, he says that knowing principle is in me and I'm present in all the bodies. So that is the first inference that one can take. The second thing is, the second set of Mahavakyas also come in here, because it is not only now spoken at the Vyashti level, it is also being spoken at the Samashti level. So when you say the same consciousness is not there just in me, but it is also present everywhere else, so we're talking Samashti here, which then, if you equate with what is being said as the knowing principle within the body, it talks about the Jiva Ishvara Aikya, which is the Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, and I am Atma Brahma principle. Okay, so verse number 3, which is Kshetragya Chapi Mam Vidhi Sarva Kshetreshu Bharata Kshetra Kshetragya Yor Jnanam Yatad Jnanam Matam Mama, which is basically the very important shloka in 13th chapter, which covers the summation of all the 4 Mahavakyas which come in all the Vedas and the Upanishads. Okay. The second set is that after describing what consciousness is, okay, Bhagavan goes on to say what now Anatma is in verse number 6 and 7. So if you look at verse 6 and 7, he actually says, this Kshetram is not just the body. In the second verse, he said Kshetram is the body. In the 6th and 7th verse, he's saying Kshetram is not just the body. It is the entire objective universe at the Samashti level. So here he talks about the 5 subtle elements, which is the Tanmatras, the 5 Pancha Mahabhutas. So it covers both the Pancha Mahabhutas at the gross and the subtle level. It talks about the 10 sense organs, the Karmendriyas and the Jnanendriyas. And it talks about Mahat, which is the cosmic intelligence, and Ahamkara at the Vyashti level. And it talks about mind and its different modifications, right? So altogether now what has happened is everything other than Kshetrajna has become the Kshetram, right? So we are talking about everything in just a binary format of Atma and Anatma. So Atma is basically Kshetrajna, and everything outside of the Atma is the Kshetram, okay, the field that is to be, that is spoken about. Now, once we finish the description of Kshetram and Kshetrajna in the first 7 verses, then Bhagavan goes on to explain what is Jnanam, okay, which is the third subset that we're talking about, from of the 3 set of questions that Arjuna has posed. Now, Jnanam is described in verses 8 to 12 as not Jnanam, but qualities which will aid to self-realization and Jnanam, right? So Bhagavan doesn't say, this is Jnanam. He says, these 20 qualities that I'm going to talk about are the ones which are going to help you to gain self-realization. And if you have this, these are the preparatory steps for self-knowledge and self-realization, right? Now, he says, Yatad Jnanam iti proktam. So if you have this, it is tantamount to you being self-realized and having that knowledge. Now, if you see the chapter 12, there are, umpteen number of values that is being described by Bhagavan, about 35 qualities of a bhakta. Whereas in the Jnana chapter, in chapter 13, there are only 20 values, which is being described for a Jnani. Now, if you do a, A union B kind of an intersection, 17 of these 20 qualities of the Jnani has been enumerated as the qualities of the Bhakta. Okay, and there are only 3 differences which are set alone for the Jnani. And those 3 differences are, the first one is to read the scriptures. The second one is to find the defects in the world. And why does he say find the defects in the world? Because that is how you develop dispassion, vairagyam. Okay, which is part of the sadhana chatushtoya sampatti. You start with discrimination first. You read the scriptures, understand what is discrimination. And the second thing he says, start finding the defects in the world, which is vairagyam. Okay, correct? And the third he says is stay rooted in the self. Now, this is exactly what, Aparajita Nanda also says. There are only 3 steps to spirituality. He says the first step is discriminate between what is real and unreal. Okay. Second thing he says, detach from the unreal. And third he says is attach to the real. That spirituality is over. 3 steps. Okay. So I think 8 to 12 is all about that. Right. Now, from 13 to 18, he talks about Nyayam. Okay. Now, Nyayam is what? That is worth knowing. So I can take 2 references here. One reference from Mundaka Upanishad, where, what is to be known and what is worth knowing is being described as Paravidya and Aparavidya. This is Mundaka Upanishad. And if you go to Katha Upanishad, it is a discussion between Nachiketa and Yama, where actually Nachiketa says, I don't want any of these material desires. Tell me that if I know everything else, right? So that is nothing but, what is worth knowing is nothing but mentioned here as Brahman. So from verse number 13 to verse number 18, we are actually going to see the qualities of Brahman, which is being described, right? The first quality that is spoken about is Sat Asat Param, right? Sat Asat Param means Brahman is beyond Sat and Asat, which is cause and effect, right? That is how it is described in chapter 13. But if you go back to chapter 9 says he's Sat also, he's Asat also. So chapter 9 says he's Sat Asat, but in chapter 13 he says Sat Asat Param, which is like he's beyond Sat and Asat. So how do you understand this. When you say Sat and Asat, he's Sat also, he is Asat also. It is the perspective of the Jivatma when he takes it to the world. So when you see the world as Brahman, when you see the world as a universe, okay, Brahman becomes the cause of the universe, so he's Asat. But when you see the world as, nothing but God, then there is only existence and Brahman is only Sat. So he's Sat also, he's Asat also. But at an absolute reality level, like what Srini spoke, there are two orders of reality. At the transactional level, Sat also, Asat also, depending upon what is your perspective to the world. This at the absolute reality, he is Sat Asat Param. Okay, that's the first quality that is it. Second thing he says he's Anadi. Anadi is beginningless. Then everything about omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent is there. He's got legs everywhere, he's got hands everywhere, eyes, mouth, ears. Okay, he's pervading this world. He's a source of all activity, supporter, sustainer, experiencer of all gunas, but yet free from all the gunas. He's inside also, he's outside also. That means what? He's immanent and he's also transcendent. Okay. So this God that we're talking about, Brahman, is both immanent and transcendent. He's unmoving also, he's moving also, he's far also, he's near also. He cannot be divided, but yet appears to be divided. And he's very subtle, which is, he's very, very subtle in the sense, sukshma. This knowledge is very subtle. That's why it's always called an open secret, right? Everybody knows what it is, but, for you to understand what it is a, different experience altogether. So he is all pervading. He is sarvagatam. He is not available for perception, which is avyaktam. Okay. And he is a creator, sustainer, and destroyer of all feelings, right? So essentially, he is nothing but the cause of the universe and the light of all lights, and he is beyond ignorance. He is Sat Chit Ananda. Chit is the Jnana Swarupa, existence is Sat, and Ananda is pure bliss. And this is the goal of knowledge. So we now complete the section on Nyayam and, what is the goal of knowledge, right? From verse number 20 to 24, it is about Purusha Prakriti pair. Okay, now here, he keeps on saying different things. He says the differences between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha is sentient, Prakriti is insentient. Purusha is not changing, Prakriti is changing. Purusha is just the illuminator. Blessed by the Purusha, the Prakriti, creates everything. Okay, Purusha appears to be the Karta and Bhokta, but he's never attached and unaffected. Okay. And then he says in verse number 24, the one who knows the Purusha and Prakriti in this manner, along with the gunas, is not born again. Okay. And he's a jnani who's free from samsara. All right. Now, let's just rewind a little bit and go back to what is samsara. And, we understand samsara as a cycle of, countless birth and rebirth, etc. Right. But what is the cause of samsara? If you go back, right, the cause of samsara are two things, ahamkara and mamakara. Right. So these are the two reasons why we are continuously caught up in this cycle of birth and death. Right. Now, when you say mamakara, what is the mamakara attachment that we normally have? It is of the profession, position, family, friends. This is mamakara. What is ahamkara? What is the reason for ahamkara? The body-mind complex is the reason for mamakara, ahamkara, right? So mamakara can be reduced by what Swami P says as the port reduction, which is reduction in positions, obligations, responsibilities, and transactions. So when you do this, you detach yourself from profession, position, family, and friends. You may be working, but you still remain unaffected by it. And how do you reduce ahamkara? Ahamkara, Swami P says, you follow the class production model. What is class production model? Reduce your controllership over things that you're doing, okay? That you want it to be done in a certain way. Reduce the anxiety, A, and reduce also special prayers. When he says special prayers, obviously it is about moving from sakama to nishkama in terms of even bhakti and this one. So this will bring down your mamakara, ahamkara. And for mamakara, it is the port reduction if you do. And together, if you are able to practice, you should be on the path in terms of gaining self-knowledge and self-realization. And how do we evaluate whether, mamakara is going down and ahamkara is going down? I think the answer to that is the FIR model, which we know about the frequency, intensity, and resilience. Okay. Now, coming back to basically chapter 13. So chapter 13, verse number 25 to 26, basically, Bhagavan talks about 4 different paths, okay, which is the Karma Yoga, Sankhya Yoga, and then he talks about Upasana Yoga and all that. But what I read in Professor V.K. Krishnamurti's book is, one other book which I read was it is not 4 different paths. It is the 4 steps to Jnana Yoga. So not necessarily in the same order, which we all know, which is the Karma Yoga, which is mentioned. The second is the Upasana Yoga, which is Karma Yoga is basically to remove yourself of all your impurities, and Upasana Yoga is to get yourself focused in terms of what you want to achieve in terms of the goal. And Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam is the route towards understanding and realizing the Supreme. So essentially, it is not 4 different paths. It's basically the steps towards Jnana Yoga. That's the other thing. Verse number 27, 28, 29 to 30. Okay, I think he talks about what is the right perception to have. Okay, so if you have to be, a self-realized soul, then what is the kind of things that he qualifies a self-realized person to be? He who sees me as a supreme Lord in all beings. Okay, which is something that we need to understand. Which is also come in this one. Sarvabhuta hitera tat. Hitam means to love. Okay, and Sarvabhutam is all beings, and our ability to be able to love all beings. We cannot be in a position of having any ragadvesha or hate towards anybody else. Okay. The second thing he says is sees the imperishable in the perishable. Right? So there are 2 points here. So even if you're interacting with somebody, you understand that, the Atma behind it is what you're actually saluting to. Because what he's already spoken about is whatever moving or unmoving, okay, is nothing but a union of Kshetra and Kshetrajna. Okay, which is nothing but para and apara prakriti, and which is nothing but the matter and the spirit principle. The third one is, by doing so, the jnani saves himself from spiritual destructions and attains the supreme goal. Okay, all actions happen in prakriti, and self is without any action. And in the end, he summarizes it as follows. He says, the jnana phalam that you get from the whole thing is that know that everything, originates from Brahman, and he who understands this becomes Brahman. Okay, Brahman neither acts nor is tainted by any action. So he gives 2 examples here, that of the sun, Akasha example, and the Prakasha example, the space example and the sun example. And what are the benefits, therefore, from this understanding is Sarvatra Samadarshanam. Okay, that is, seeing everything, as embodiments of Brahman. Rightfully claim that I am Akarta, I am Abhokta, I am not the, doer, I am not the experiencer. And therefore, I am Asanga Swarupa. Asanga Swarupa is completely detached. So even for a jnani, when we say that he is to undergo the prarabdha karma, it is only the body which is undergoing the prarabdha karma. He is not attached to the body anymore. So I think we need to see it from that perspective. And one of the final benefits that is being spoken about is attainment of immortality. Immortality here does not mean cessation of death. It actually means merging with the absolute. All right. So that brings down to my summary of 13th chapter. I hope, if you have any time, it's just about going to be 9. So if you have any questions ready to take, or we can continue again. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat.
Superb. Excellent, Subbu.
That's
Very
great,
nicely put it.
Subbu.
Excellent.
Nice and quick and crisp summary of all the verses. It almost was like a summary of what Srini was talking about earlier.
Yeah. Thank you.
And some of the things you went back to that Swami P talks about, right? One thing that I think Ajay also brought this up, the Purusha Prakriti. You were connecting it with 9 and some of, I think there is one aspect of it in chapter 10 also that we've seen. I am in everything, and then everything is in me, and therefore I am everything, the Ishvara concept. And Swami D actually emphasizes the Jiva Ishvara relationship quite a bit. Of course, Ishvara is just the combination of Brahman with the Maya, in the cosmic sense, right? He keeps bringing that up all the time. And I go back to chapter 2, actually, this Purusha Prakriti concept, because it's the so-called Sankhya concept, right? The only issue with the Sankhya concept is it gives reality to Prakriti. So it is, at the end of the day, a dual thinking process.
Correct.
which Krishna obviously, dismisses it off in definitely in chapter 9, and then in the subsequent, and in 13 he just puts the, for a crude expression, nail in the coffin for that duality. Because here I think he just says, hey, I am the witness, and that's it, right? Everything else is the field. So,
And I would
True.
say this is a
That's very
great time
nice.
to go back and listen to Swami Dayananda's 3 tapes on chapter 13, the field and the knower of the field.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
also, it'll be very impactful having just gone through this and these summaries as well. And Gunz, I would also just like to say,
yeah,
my understanding is why Swami Dayananda comes again and again to Ishvara, because he says that
Yeah.
when we grow up, the idea of being isolated, of being separated, is very damaging to our psyche. And the healing is Ishvara. The healing is the Lord. And then again, it may or may not be, but for me, Swami Dayananda was Ishvara with arms and legs. So it became even more personal. But whether
Yeah.
that dawns or not, I really understood his saying that this separation we feel, this isolation we feel, if we take refuge in the Lord, that's a great healer for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely. That's that, and he, because I read chapters 5 and 6 here recently very deeply, Swami D's writings here. He just keeps on bringing exactly that up, and that gives a lot of comfort, because Ishvara is more, let's say, quote unquote, real for us, right? Ishvara is more real for us in the sense that it is in the, how would I put this? It does take us to that right side, the Prakriti, the material aspects of everything, right? Of our everyday life. So it's a lot closer, even for meditation, he recommends, just go meditate on the Ishvara concept first. You don't have to meditate on Nirguna Brahman, for example, right? That comes later. You'll get there anyway without any effort.
And part of what you're saying and what Swami D says is that, at first, when we're toddlers and infants, young children, our parents are gods, but they cease to become gods. So to rectify it, take refuge in God.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of personal thing you're describing. It is the mithya, but it's very healing. It's very soothing, and for many people, very necessary to help overcome the isolation. And again, I'd go back to what Ajay was saying too, because the world does not appreciate pursuing this, does not acknowledge the reality of this. That's another bridge.
Yeah.
Correct.
It's great.
Finally, Nirguna Brahman plus Maya is Saguna Brahman, right? So,
Yeah.
Which is
So
Ishvara, which is what we call Ishvara, right?
yeah.
So they're all the same concept.
Subbu, you used 2 phrases to kind of talk about removing ahankara and mamakara. What were they?
So, see, for Ahamkara reduction, what Swami P talks about is basic class reduction. Okay. So,
Say it
CL
again.
is class reduction. So,
Okay.
it is about controllership, reducing controllership in any activity, anxiety,
Right.
and special prayers.
Anxiety. What is S for?
SP is special prayers.
Special
Clasp.
prayers.
Okay.
Clasp. Okay.
Yeah. So
Clasp
you're still
is
holding
you're
on to your
clasping,
identity, which is why
holding
you
on
yeah.
and clasping.
Holding on.
So that's very nice way of making us
So
remember.
clasp is for ahamkara and port is for mamakara.
Port. Okay, I got it. Okay, understood. Thank you. And I just was kind of curious about those words.
And to evaluate how far you are in that journey, you can do the FIR process.
FIR process. Yeah, correct. Got it. Thank you.
Right.
Frequency and this one, etc. Intensity and resilience.
Yeah, port is almost like think about I don't know. This is a very, very weird analogy. You don't own any ports. Reduce all the ports that you own. So the mine concept, right? Nothing is yours.
Should we
No.
conclude? It's 9:06.
Unless you are Adani, you don't own any ports.
I don't want to go there, man. Yeah, as
All
soon
right,
as we
let's
say
close out.
port, that gets into the Adani thing. So
Okay.
Yeah,
anyway,
we'll close.
right.
So we'll conclude. Thank you. And we just do the concluding prayers. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukkavad Bhavet, Asato Ma Sadgamaya, Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya, Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti 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 Om. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thank you, guys.
Thanks,
Thanks for
everyone.
all
Thank
this.
you. Great session. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a
Thank you.
lot.
Bye.
We'll see you. Bye.
चारू तेरा फोन बज रहा है क्या?